Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31 says, a passage of scripture that you have tucked away in your memory. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That's us. That's us. At the end of World War II, an American sub came back to Newport News, Virginia, to dock in the Navy station. As it came into the port in the deep water where the ships could come in, something terribly wrong happened to the mechanisms, and it began to sink in the harbor. They immediately dispatched the Coast Guard to go out because obviously the submarine had a full crew. They had one goal, and that was to save that crew. As they dispatched divers that would dive down around the hull and try to see if they could figure out what was wrong. As the divers swam, they could hear some knocking in the sub. As they stopped to listen, it was the sound of a hammer that was knocking on the hull from the inside in Morse code. And the Morse code sounded out, "Is there hope?" What a great way to start this series based on what we've talked about tonight. Is there hope? That is the one fundamental question of life. Is life worth living? Is there hope? Can I count on anything in life? Is there hope? It's asked every day by thousands of people in 1,000 different ways. When sitting in the doctor's office awaiting test, there is this unconscious question that's being asked. Is there hope? When standing beside a bed in the hospital, you hear the question, is there hope? When a couple having put months and months and months into marriage counselors sitting there and getting nowhere, they're thinking in their minds, is there hope? When you're dealing with a tax accountant in a bankruptcy court and you ask, is there hope? When a couple or a family hears that their child is missing, they ask the question, is there hope? You can go about 40 days without food and about 3 days without water. You can only go about 8 minutes without any hope. But you cannot go a single second without air. Hope is one of the essentials of life. When hope is gone, life is gone. And it's over. We need hope to cope. Dr. Harold Wolf, who was professor at Cornell University in the medical school, did a study on the effects of hope on the human body. He studied 25,000 prisoners of war over an extended period of time to see what hope did to them and what difference it made. He discovered that out of those 25,000 prisoners of war, there was a group of men on whom the experience of being a POW had no effect at all. In spite of brutality, in spite of torture, in spite of solitary confinement, in spite of all kinds of inhumane abuse, there was one group that it simply did not faze. There was no post-traumatic stress syndrome. They didn't get ill. They didn't have flashbacks. They handled it and they went on with their life. When they studied the group, they had one common denominator, and it was an extraordinary high level of hope. In other words, they never gave up. When studied that group, he found out that hope had made all the difference in the world. It is essential for handling the crisis of life. In his concluding study, he said this, and I quote, "When a man has hope, he is capable of bearing incredible burdens and cruel punishment. But when hope is gone, people fall apart, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Tonight we're beginning a brand new series that I have entitled, How God Meets Your 10 Deepest Needs. We're going to begin by looking at where do you go to find help and the hope that you need. Now this introduction is going to take all the rest of the night and all of next Wednesday night. Because if you don't have hope, none of the other things that you and I are going to talk about are going to make any sense. You have to have hope to believe that God will work in your life. You have to have hope to believe that God can change your circumstances, that God can meet your needs. You have to have hope. Because hope is in such short supply in our society today, people will fall for all kinds of scams. They actually put their hope in false hope. They trust in things like psychic hotlines, palm readings, astrology, fake healers, quack cures, and all kind of crazy things, crystals, putting their hope in rocks and stupid things. And of course, inevitably these things disappoint. And actually they end up being worse off because nothing is worse than being disappointed by a false hope. Nothing is more useless than false hope. Is there any place where I can go to get real hope? That I can depend on, that I can count on for the crisis of life when things come into my life that I don't plan but blow me over? Is there anything like that that I can count on? Where do I go in life, my life, your life, to find that kind of hope? The Bible tells us that there is a place. God is the source. He is the source of our hope. Romans chapter 15 verse 13 says, May God, the source of hope, fill you with joy and peace through your faith in Him. In other words, as you put your faith in God, He gives you peace, He gives you joy, and He gives you hope. He said, then you will overflow with hope. Specifically, God says, if you want to put your hope in me, you need to put it in my name. The Bible says, in your name I will hope, for your name is good. What does that mean? It means, how do you put your hope in the name of God? I mean, what's the big deal here? Well, you need to understand that in that particular day and time, names meant a lot more than today. Today we use names that we like the way they sound. For an example, my daughter's named Stephanie. My grandson is named Spencer. Kind of sophisticated sounding names, not like Henry, Clifton, Harry. What was our mama thinking, Harry? Today, we like names that just kind of fall off our tongues that people can remember. But in ancient cultures, they would choose names because of what they meant, because of what they described. In fact, your name in that particular day and time was usually the definition of your character. You were given a name that matched who you were. Thank God that's changed. Can't you imagine say, hey, what's your name? I'm stupid, I reckon. When God chose to reveal Himself to the Hebrew nation, He used Hebrew terms to describe Himself. Did you know that God was known by a lot of different names? In the Bible, God calls Himself by many different Hebrew names. Each of those names is a description of his character. Each of those names is a promise to you and to me. Each of those names is a benefit that God says, I will provide to man. For instance, one time God used a Hebrew name, Jehovah Shalom. That means I am the God who gives you peace. And if you want real peace of mind, you come to me for it. In another place, he described himself as in a term called Jehovah Jireh. That means I am the God who provides for all of your needs. That meant that you can count on me. You can come to me. So we're going to be looking at those names in the weeks ahead, because as I began to prepare for this series, Meeting Your 10 Deepest Needs, I came to an amazing discovery that every one of the needs of a man, there is a corresponding name of God. And God says in so many ways, you have a need, I can meet that need. You have another need, I can meet that need. And on and on and on and on. At the end of the book of Ezekiel, God gives one of his names. He says, I am Jehovah Shammah. The Hebrew means I am the God who's always there. There's no place that God isn't. There's no place that you can go that God's not already there. God has been in your past. God is in your present. And God is going to be in your future. He is there for the good times. He's there for the bad times. He's in the good places. He's in the evil places. He's everywhere. This is something that has profound implications on where you find hope. If God is truly with me all the time, whether I feel that he's with me or not, if he is truly with me, that means there are three sources of hope that I can count on. Now, there are a lot of things in life that I cannot count on. There are a lot of things in life that are uncertain. But there are three anchors of the soul, as the Bible calls them. Hope is the anchor of the soul. Things that I can count on so that no matter what happens, I know that my life is not hopeless. Isn't that good? Isn't that good? The first thing that I know about God is his presence is watching over me. Wow. The older I get, the more I realize how much of my life is out of my control. I want to say that again. The older I get, the more I realize how much of my life is out of my control. The truth is, not only can I not control much of what is in the future, I don't even know much about what's in my future. Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10 said, don't worry because I am with you, says God. Don't be afraid because I'm your God. I will make you strong and I will help you. I will support you. Isaiah 41:10. The good news is, regardless of what happens, you and I do not go through life alone. There is a God who will always be with us. He'll always be there. He'll always walk with you. He'll always talk with you. And when I hold on to that certainty, I have hope in my life. There are a lot of uncertain things in life. One of the sad uncertainties in life is that people will leave you. Did you get that? Friends and family will either walk away or move away sometimes. There will be people that you love that will die. There will be people that you love that will become ill and won't be themselves anymore. There may be even those that you argue with, and there will be separation that is painful. The sad truth of life is that people leave us. Sometimes by death, sometimes by abandonment. But there are times in life when our closest friends walk away. But the certainty of life is that God will never leave you. He helps us to have hope because the fear of being abandoned is one of the greatest causes of hopelessness in all of our lives. The feeling that I am going to be deserted, the feeling that I'm going to be forsaken, the feeling that I'm going to be left alone, the feeling that I'm going to be overwhelmed and there's going to be no one to help is expressed in these two words. What if? What if? What if my wife dies, or what if my husband dies and I'm left alone? What if my kids are not there for me at the end of life and I'm left alone? What if I have no friends left and I'm left alone? What if I have no money left and I'm left alone? What if? The truth is that God will never, ever, ever leave you. Isn't that awesome? The scripture says God will never leave nor forsake you. Man, that's awesome stuff. As pastor for the last 50 years or so, I've stood by a lot of grave sites with people. After that funeral, many, many times, I have seen in their eyes and I have heard the words, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know where life is going to take me. I've heard oftentimes a sense of doubt. And I've heard these words, what if? I've heard that in the voice of a spouse who has just been deserted, or someone who has just lost their jobs, or a parent who has just lost a child. This feeling that says, how am I going to go on? Some of you might be in this place tonight and you have that feeling, what if? The answer is profound and yet simple. God will be with you. He will never leave you, and He will never forsake you. He will never stop loving you, and He will never judge you. You say, wait a minute, preacher, that's not true. Oh, yes, it is true. Oh, yes, it is true. You see, on the cross, Christ paid for your sin. God Almighty judged Jesus Christ on the cross that you and I would not be judged. Are you listening to what I'm saying? John 3:16 said, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. Please read the next verse. Verse 17 says that Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world, but that through Him the world might be saved. One of the greatest truths that you don't hear in many pulpits is that you will never have to give an account of your sin before God. Oh no, that's not what you hear. What you hear in far too many of our legalistic churches is, bless God, God's going to get you for that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't tithe, God's going to take it. Are you listening to me? Oh, yeah, I've heard preachers say, how many people in your church in your church tithe? All of my people tithe. Son, give it. The rest of them God takes. What a sad lie that is being told in our pulpits today. Folks, listen to me. God is not a God of revenge. He is a God of love and caring and kindness. His revenge was taken on the cross when Jesus said, it's finished. On that moment, he bought back everything that Adam and Eve lost in the garden. Glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Not only is he with us, he watches over us. Not just watches us, but watches over us. Did you get that? It's one thing for me to watch Mark. It's something else for me to watch over him. You understand what I'm saying? When our kids were small, I watched them, but I also watched over them. The Bible said in Psalm 32, verse 8, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you, and I will watch over you. Notice the word guide and advise. You and I don't know the future. As I said earlier, we cannot control our future, but God knows tomorrow. This book from which I preach says that God knows the end. When? Before the beginning. Wow. The fact that God not only knows, he's willing to guide us and to advise us concerning the future. He's willing to show us his way. The Bible says that God guides the footsteps of his children. You said, no, the Bible didn't say that. No. Let me tell you what the King James said. The King James says, God guides the footsteps of the righteous. Is that what your Bible says? Let me tell you who the righteous are. I'm his kid. He's my daddy. And the Bible said in Corinthians that I have the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. So when that book says that he guides the footsteps of the righteous, that's you and that's me that know him as our Savior. Wow. I got that. 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 He's got that. Are you listening to me? Are you listening? He guides our footsteps. Whew. Lord have mercy. I can get down yonder and back in a quick hurry if I need to. I can tell you, it may not take me long. For many of us, when we can't figure out why something is happening, there's a real sense of hopelessness. If we can't figure out why we're having a problem, or we can't figure out what the benefit of that problem is going to be, there's a little hope, there's confusion, there's frustration. One of the great things that brings hope is realizing that I don't have to figure it out at all. All I have to do is trust God, who's already got it figured out. Glory to God. Man, I'm telling you, this is good stuff. I don't care if I am teaching it. He knows and he understands, and he's willing to guide and advise me through life. Wow. That's a good place to stop, don't you think? Yay. Woohoo. Glory to God. Y'all, I don't know if we're going to last through this thing or not without me getting raptured. I'll just be honest with you. I'm telling you something. I know y'all think these Bible studies are for you, but they're not. They're for the preacher. Son, I tell you, I wouldn't trade what I'm doing for anything in the world. You know why? He's my daddy. And he loves me just like I am. Aren't you glad? You know, it's so awesome. That's one of those things that I'm not going to hit on very often, but that is the threats. Look, you need to be careful how you threaten us. I'll call my daddy. Huh? Are you listening? You don't want me to call my daddy. He'll make a French fry out of you. Hey, man, you say, preacher, you're crazy. No, you're not better read your Bible. Huh? I'm an heir of God and a joint heir with Jesus, aren't you? Is that what your Bible says? Amen. Look, guys, he knows the future. He knows what our needs are. He knows who our enemies are. You mess around, we'll call daddy. Huh? Yeah. Amen. My boys are old now. I mean, my oldest son's 51 or 2. I actually don't know how old he is. I just know that Linda and I got married in 63 and he was born in 65, I think it was. Sometimes he was born about a year and a half or 2 after we got married is all I know. Now it don't take that long, but then it still took. That's another story. Now we got miracle babies that you get married today and have a baby next week. Whew. Now that's quick. Thank you, Jesus. Took one of them miracle pills. Yeah, thank God. Yeah, no more coffee. Yeah, that's right. Ain't having no more coffee for the preacher tonight. They pour them babies out. But it doesn't make any difference how old my kids are. They can call their daddy. Can't yours? You know? Yeah. Yeah. I talked to a lady the other day that didn't have anything to do with her son anymore. I said, why not? She said, well, I don't like him. She said, I love him, but I don't like him. And I said, well, tell me about it. And she was telling me about how he had gotten on drugs and had been in jail, and now he was out, and he wasn't working. And I said, that's pretty awesome. I said, I understand that. She said, how do you understand it? I said, I understand just exactly what you're talking about. I said, I've been there. I said, I've been there. I said, I was that kid you're talking about. She looked at me kind of funny, and she said, I thought you was the preacher. I said, I am a preacher. I said, but you want me to tell you something? I said, God loved me just like I was. Dirt, filth, drugs, and all. And I said, you know what? When I got back to my house from California, my mom and dad sent me a bus ticket. And I rode a Greyhound bus from the Greyhound bus station in Los Angeles, California to Greenville, Alabama. And I got to Greenville, Alabama at 3 o'clock in the morning. Then the bus stations were like cafes, you know. They had a little sign out there that said Greyhound. 3 o'clock in the morning, that bus pulled in. There was one car sitting at the bus station. The bus pulled in, the old handbrakes went, and the door opened. And I got out with my bag. You know what my bag was? A paper sack. You know who was in that car? My My daddy was working on the railroad. And my mama drove 16 miles from the country to the bus station in the pitch black dark by herself to meet that drug kid. That kid that had to leave California, keep him going to prison for grand theft auto. I don't know how much she liked me, but I know she loved me. And I told that lady, I said, you know what? I'm so glad that God's love for me is greater than my love, that my mama's love for me was. That conversation ended in a hurry. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. People can't do enough to make you love them. You love people because that's what God ordained us to do. Amen. Wow. Sonny boy, who we praying for tonight?